It all began on a gray, mist-filled morning at the small cemetery where my great-uncle Harold was laid to rest. He had always been an odd man, quiet, reclusive, with a habit of scribbling into journals no one was ever allowed to read. People in the family whispered about his wealth, but few had seen it. I had known him only as the figure lurking in the corner of every family gathering, muttering to himself and staring blankly at things no one else could see. When the lawyer arrived, tall, gaunt, and impeccably dressed in black, clutching an unusually heavy envelope, I had no idea that my life and the lives of my family was about to descend into a nightmare that would last years. The envelope contained the first version of Harold's will. It was peculiar in ways that made everyone uneasy. The inheritance was not just money or possessions. Each clause came with instructions, conditions that seemed almost impossible. My cousin Erica, for example, was to inherit the old Victorian mansion only if she stayed alone in it for 7 nights. My Uncle Simon would receive Harold's rare car collection, but only if he drove the oldest car on the estate roads at midnight, a task the will ominously warned would have unforeseen consequences if ignored. At first, we laughed nervously, thinking it was just Uncle Harold being eccentric. But the cold, measured tone of the lawyer, Mr. Calloway, hinted that there was something more sinister at play, and a chill ran down my spine as he said, "This is the way he wanted it. He has always been particular." Erica's first night in the mansion proved the warnings were not idle. Shadows twisted unnaturally along the walls. The furniture seemed to shift when she wasn't looking. Portraits stared, and whispers echoed faintly, calling her name, though she was alone. By dawn, she was pale and trembling, claiming she had seen a figure at the foot of her bed. Harold, his face twisted into a sinister grin. Yet she survived, and the mansion became hers, but it was the first sign that the will was more than paper. It was something alive, something that thrived on fear and obedience. The changes began quickly. When Simon came to claim the cars, the will had altered itself. New instructions appeared, stranger and more menacing than the first. He now had to drive each car at exactly 3:33 a.m., in reverse order, or face a debt that could not be repaid in gold or blood alone. None of us understood how this was possible. We realized slowly, and with growing terror, that the will changed after every funeral, adapting and becoming crueler with each death. By the time my brother Caleb died in a sudden accident, the curse had fully revealed itself. I began noticing the small, inexplicable things: shadows that lingered too long, whispers from empty rooms, dark stains on floors that vanished when I tried to touch them. Even distant relatives who had no connection to the estate began receiving letters, written in Harold's handwriting, filled with instructions and threats. It became impossible to ignore the reality. The will was alive, and it was feeding on our grief, our fear, and our deaths. One night, I encountered Harold himself, or rather, the essence of him. In the dim light of my bedroom, a figure appeared, taller and thinner than any man should be, with hollow eyes and a grin too sharp to be human. His voice did not travel through the air but directly into my mind, chilling and insistent. "Every death brings clarity. Every soul lost alters the path. Obey, and you survive. Disobey." And he paused, and the silence felt like it was pressing against my chest. "And you vanish." That night, I understood fully that the will was not just a document. It was a predator, intelligent and patient, bound to our family and our tragedies. The next changes were relentless. My inheritance, once a modest cabin, now required that I live there alone for a year without leaving, under threat of a shadow from beyond the veil. Shadows moved along walls, whispers crawled into my ears from empty rooms, and the world seemed to bend under the will's influence. Each funeral, each death in the family, strengthened its power. Every attempt to destroy or discard the envelope failed. It always returned, taunting, alive, with letters appearing and disappearing across its surface. Months later, Erica called me in a panic. The will had changed again. Now, it demanded that we all gather in the mansion at midnight to participate in a ritual we could not fully comprehend. When we arrived, the mansion was alive in ways no building should be. The doors closed behind us. Windows became black mirrors. The portrait's eyes followed our every movement. Candles lit themselves, flickering with an unnatural greenish-blue flame, and shadows twisted into grotesque living shapes along the walls. The envelope floated above the fireplace, larger and darker than ever. Its words formed in glowing script: "All who inherit, gather. Obey, or dissolve into nothing." We had no choice but to follow its instructions. We placed gifts in precise positions, recited phrases in trembling voices, and performed acts of obedience we barely understood. The house itself seemed to watch, the walls breathing as if alive. When the ritual ended, the envelope finally settled above the fireplace, pulsing faintly, as though satisfied for now. I left that night with a single haunting truth etched into my mind: the will never stops, never forgets, and never sleeps. Each funeral strengthens it, every death makes it more cunning, more malevolent, and more impossible to escape. And I know, deep down, that one day it will come for me again, and perhaps for generations after. The curse is eternal, and the will changes after every funeral. Death is only the beginning of its hunger.